The Policy Setting Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Monetary Policy Committee, has raised the MPR, this monetary policy rate, from 13% to 14% to tackle rising inflation. In June, Nigeria's inflation rate reached a 5-year high at 18.6%. The monetary policy rate is, of course, the baseline rate in an economy which every other interest rate used is built upon. Addressing journalists today after the committee's meeting, Gordon Emefiele, governor of the central bank, said the hike in interest rates will help address rising inflation.
Committee thus voted unanimously to raise the monetary policy rate, MPR. One member voted to increase the MPR by 150 basis points, 6 members by 100 basis points, 1 member by 75 basis points, and 3 members by 50 basis points. Consequently, committee resolved to increase the MPR by 100 basis points from 13% to 14%. And in summary, MPC voted as follows. 1. Increase MPR to 14% from 13. Symmetric corridor at plus 100 and minus 700 basis points around the MPR. 3. Retain the CRR at 27.5%. And 4. Retain liquidity ratio at 30%.
All right, joining me to discuss further, Chinwe Ewgim, Chief Economist of Coronation Merchant Bank. Chinwe, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. So what was your forecast, and what do you make of the decision?
Yeah, thanks, Rutus. So our view was tilted towards 2 potential outcomes, which were either a rate hike following the uptick seen in the headline inflation figure, which you mentioned. And that happened after the meeting in May held. And then the second assumption we had was an unchanged stance.
Okay, so I guess, does this, as far as our inflation figures are concerned, this chasing of inflation, does it move the needle at all? What do you make of, as far as the inflation matter is concerned, what do you make of it?
Well, we must understand that rising inflation is currently being seen across advanced and emerging economies. And so it's not unique to Nigeria. Now, countries such as Ghana, Kenya, South Africa have recorded upticks in their inflation figures. And of course, this is triggered by supply side constraints due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine crisis. And also from the economic scarring that occurred at the peak of the coronavirus spread in 2020. However, it is worth mentioning that prior to this period, Nigeria's headline inflation had been above the MPC's tolerance band, or what they refer to as the implicit target corridor of between 6 to 9% year on year for at least 5 years. And this has been largely due to structural issues. Okay, so since December last year, month-on-month inflation has remained above 1%, which is relatively high. The month-on-month inflation has a direct impact on your year-on-year inflation. If the current month-on-month inflation levels are maintained, rising inflation will persist and could hit 20% by the end of this year.
So what do you think needs to be
done?
So
let's see what the rate hike would do in terms of combating rising inflation.
Okay, is there anything else that can be done to tackle this high inflation? I mean, you've identified it being a supply side problem. Do you think anything can be done to bring the numbers down?
Well, in my opinion, cost push inflation is driving current inflationary pressure. The supply side constraints need to be tackled, and the structural issues also need to be addressed in order to tackle these supply side constraints. Supply bottlenecks affect food supply, and food prices strongly influence the headline inflation rate. Nigeria's sizable infrastructure deficit also has an adverse effect on operational costs, which usually results in reduced output that triggers price surges, okay? There is also the issue of heavy dependence on imported inputs or imported food items, which are heavily influenced by movements in the exchange rate market. We see the impact of FX depreciations in the imported food inflation rate, and this rate penetration into the market is visible across departmental stores that sell imported items. What needs to be done? Supply side constraints need to be tackled. And the forward step would be to not just create policies that should address structural issues, but effectively implement these policies.
Thanks for that. So a couple minutes to go here. What's your outlook for the rest of the year as far as the Nigerian economy is concerned?
I think what I'll do is I will limit it to my inflation outlook. Well, we expect to see steady upticks in the headline inflation rate in subsequent months. Some factors influencing this assumption include structural issues impacting the cost of doing business, such as insecurity, the trickle-down effect of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine crisis, of course, which has had an impact on rising oil prices, which by extension has resulted in the surge in prices of deregulated petroleum products such as diesel, kerosene, and aviation fuel. Modest exchange rate depreciations and the impact of the previous hike in electricity prices, amongst others. So we expect further upticks in the headline inflation in coming months, at least at the end of this year.
All right. Thank you so much, Chinwe Ewgim, as Chief Economist at Coronation Merchant Bank. We appreciate your thoughts on the MPC rate hike to 14%. Thank you very much.